So far, we have covered creating new identity and how to embody becoming that new identity. And because of that, today we're touching on limiting thoughts. Over the last couple of days, how many times have you said, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, and some little negative voice crept up at the back of your mind and went, you can't do that. You can't afford that. You can't move there. You don't have that kind. You know the voice. You can actually give the voice a name. Name it. Call it George. Whatever, if there was some jerk at school that you didn't like, name it after them. But give it a name. Give that voice a name. And when that voice starts to come up in your mind, say, shut up, George. That's not my story anymore. And a very effective countermeasure for those negative thoughts. Because what's happening is your subconscious mind, it has good intentions. It really does. It wants to protect you, but it doesn't understand that growth isn't dangerous. It's what we're here for. It's what we're meant for. But because our primitive monkey brain, it's the same one that the caveman version of us had, you know, and it was trying to keep us from getting eaten by saber-toothed tigers. So it doesn't function as well in the modern world in which we live. And we have to acknowledge that we have this part of our brain that in its effort to protect us is really just limiting us. And it creates these limiting beliefs about ourselves. It could even be something that we were told in elementary school, something that our parents told us. That negative voice in your head has good intentions, but we got to get it to shut up so that we have the belief in ourselves to move forward. So when those negative thoughts come up, and you'll notice there'll be just like some key ones. There'll be like 4 or 5 different key thoughts that keep coming up in your mind, limiting beliefs. The negative voice, the George saying, you can't do that. You don't have this. So there's going to be a trigger tracker, and I'm going to attach it so you guys can print it out if you want to print it out, or just keep tracking your phone, whatever's most convenient for you, notepad. The purpose is to find those 4 or 5 repetitive negative thoughts that come up when you start to envision this new life for yourself. And what we're going to do, because those are lies. Those are lies that our subconscious mind is telling us, because a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. All we have to do is replace the old limiting belief with a new empowering truth. So we're going to write down those 4 or 5 different thoughts. And those are going to change because new level, new devil, over time, you'll find that there'll be new limiting beliefs that come in as you continue to grow and expand. And you can use this whenever this type of thought comes up. It'll become second nature as you begin to form this new habit. And this is very important because that negative Nancy George voice can shut us down right at the moment where we're about to make a breakthrough. Those old anxieties and fears and that old baggage will come up. And right at the point where you're about to make that leap of faith, and you go back in your box. So it's very important that we get control of the negative Nancy voice in the head. So as you go through your day, and you're embodying, you're believing in this possibility, and the voice pops up. What does it say? Write it down. Whose voice is it? Is it someone from your past? Is it your own voice? It's important to recognize this voice just so that you can respond to it immediately, so that you know right away, oh, it's just George. George is being an ass today. And dismiss it. But when you get those repetitive, the most common ones that are coming to you when you're thinking about this new life and these new possibilities, when those limiting beliefs start coming to the surface, write them down, and then write the counter statement. So the lie is that you don't have the talent to become what you want to be. So the truth, opposing truth, would be, I am full of talent that's been unrealized up to this point. Now is my time to shine. And anytime this negative limiting belief pops up in your mind, you're going to counteract it with the new statement, the new truth. And do that for however many of these things pop up for you. And on the trigger tracker, it actually has, like, what were you doing? What were you thinking? What was your mindset? What was going on in your head when this thought popped in? Because a lot of times what will happen, and it's just the way that our brains default to. So we're going to kick them up a notch too, and we're going to make them work for us instead of just being these negative Nancy, asshole George voices that hold us back. So when you get in the habit of replacing negative thoughts with positive thoughts, you stop that snowball effect that so many of us fall into. When a negative thought comes in, it brings friends. Because what typically happens is that first negative thought comes in, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth, and it just grows and grows and grows until you're thinking about that time in second grade where you answered the question wrong and you were embarrassed. That is so not nice of our brain to do that. So we have to teach our brain how we want it to function. And by doing this, and this is the beautiful thing, again, it's a process and it's a new habit. But as we learn to replace the negative with the positive, we're going to end up rewiring our brain to immediately think positive. It's beautiful. It's called neuroplasticity. As we elevate our own belief in ourselves, as we learn how to bring more joy into our life, as we raise our vibration and elevate our energy, we're going to naturally be in a more positive state. And it starts with stinking thinking. We got to get rid of that George negative Nancy voice and not let it run our lives anymore. Even though it has good intentions, it's not real bright. So print off the trigger tracker, use a notebook, whatever works best for you. But it's going to help you really pinpoint when these thoughts come in, where they're coming from, and create that counter thought. And we're going to focus on 4 or 5 main ones. When you have it written out, if you can put it in your phone or on a 3x5 card that you can keep with you, because you want to make sure that you have ammunition when the negative Nancy attack hits. And for me, when I was going through this process, I carried a 3x5 card. And as soon as it would, like, that first one would pop up, that first limiting belief would pop up, I'd pull it off and read off first the counter to that one, and then all the other ones too. So every time a negative thought popped up, I hit it with 5 positives. And it's amazing. It takes a few weeks being consistent, and it's kind of like keeping control of a toddler, if you're familiar with how fun that can be when they're like in a mood. Just, well, you're training your brain in the same way. So be patient, give yourself credit. We're not going to be 100% at the beginning, but the more you stick with it, the more you'll see the results, and the more you'll like living with your brain again. So keep track of those triggers, write out your positive statements, hit me up if you have any questions. We're going to do the Q&A. I will talk to you soon. Love and light.